Hi guys, Ian here. Welcome to another video into my channel. And today I want to talk about enlightenment. Well, sort of, a little bit, kinda. And I was on my walk earlier and the first thing that occurs to me is how much we know by assumption, and we don't really know even what our assumptions are about things until something happens that they brought to our attention. And I was thinking about enlightenment and what causes us to be enlightened and how it happens. Because there's many times I think in my videos where I've talked about meditating and reading and studying and experiencing and all kinds of stuff. But just for a while I wanted to think about what is the process by which we move towards enlightenment. And I came to realize, right, because I was thinking specifically about the Sephirot on the Tree of Life and how we gain the experience of each of those Sephirot. Because in the Kabbalistic system of things, we ascend through our experiencing of the essences of each of the Sephirot on the Tree of Life. And I was thinking about that and how that might happen. And yeah, I was thinking about learning and the things that I'd learned since I'd started my studies and meditation and kind of that sort of thing. But it dawned on me for the first time, and it's really something that's very obvious, and I don't know why I hadn't seen it before, but I can only become more enlightened, wiser, more spiritually complete if the things that I learn and if the experience that I have change me. If they don't change me, if I don't change, then I do not evolve spiritually. And from there, I thought about, okay, so why is it that some things change me and some things don't? What is the mechanics of that? And what part of me needs to change? So then I was thinking about the middle pillar of the Tree of Life and how one of its names is the pillar of mildness and another is the pillar of consciousness. And the Kabbalistic sort of teachings are that each sephira in the middle pillar relates to a level of consciousness. For example, Malkut is physical, bodily consciousness, Yesod, astral consciousness, Tiferet, mental consciousness, then Da'at and Keter, soul, spirit, divine consciousness. And I thought about how consciousness, what is consciousness? We talk about it, we bandy the words around. I do practically in every video, but what is consciousness? Because it's more than thought, it's more than mind. What is it? What is it that fundamentally needs to change within my consciousness that really takes me to enlightenment? And I think I've come to the conclusion that consciousness is life, the divine spark, experience in itself. And then I was reminded of the words of Dion Fortune. I think she was such an insightful woman. I know a lot of people don't have a great deal of time for her and her teachings, but in her exposition of the theories of Kabbalah and the Tree of Life, she says that the divine spark, that consciousness experience in itself, has to go through that process sufficient times that it becomes proof against dispersal, that it becomes individuated. that out of the sea of divine mind, if you like, a single spark, a single thought of God, which is what I come to the conclusion we are, experiences itself sufficient times to hold cohesion, to become an individuated cosmic conscious intelligence. And that makes a lot of sense to me, that, you know, because when I think about the scriptures that say, in him we live and move and have our being, you know, and that Jesus says, I come to bring you life more abundantly. Well, what is that? What is that life, that abundant life? It's a life of our own. It's a life of an individuated soul. It is a permanent thought form of God. Now, we people who are into esoteric wisdom know, okay, that when we create a thought form, we believe it to be a living entity, but that it has a limited lifespan, because the thought form only exists when it is projected from our own soul consciousness, if you like, and it is energized by our will. And when we cease to give it that energy, it disperses. And perhaps that's what we are as thought forms of divinity. But that the abundant life being talked about is that we might experience ourselves as divine sparks and know what we are and become. That we become immortal entities. Well, that's my belief. That's what we are, I believe. We are permanent, everlasting, self-aware thoughts of God. And from there, I thought about, okay, so how do we gain that experience? How do we gain that thing that makes us proof against dispersal, that we remain everlasting and we don't slip just back into the sea of divine mind? And every time I have these questions, okay, I go back to the Hermetic axiom, as above, so below. Now, you'll hear me mention this until I'm purple in the face, but what it means is that everything in the below, in the worlds below, have their order, have their intelligence, have their way of functioning according to a pattern that applies to everything in the above. They are mirror images. That as above, so below, as below, so above. And if that be the case, what is it in our world that brings things in manifestation to perfection, to their own form of enlightenment, to their own form of optimal expression? And we call that, don't we, the scientists call that evolution. And what is evolution? It is the repetition of the species, time after time after time. And through millions and billions of deaths and the passings of the species, it evolves, it ascends, it physically enlightens. Now, if that pattern in the below is reflected to a spiritual principle in the above, there we see, don't we, the principle of reincarnation, of the repeating of many experiences of life, that we might, as soul spirits, evolve and grow and perfect and ascend. And I thought then about my my thinking about reincarnation and what it is that I assume about that I don't necessarily realize that I assume. Because when we talk about reincarnation, when we talk about many lives, we have to remember that we are talking about it from our human experience. So we think about, don't we, having lived before in a human life, being a person in a situation, in a profession perhaps, in a family, in a country. But really what we're talking about in reincarnation, I'm coming to the conclusion, is that the divine spark that I am, experiencing itself, moves on from this experience of Ian into another experience of life. Now, I don't know what that experience of life will be. I'm not saying I might come back as a pig or a cow or a tree. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that our thinking in this is very limited. It's limited by our human experience. And what I am coming to the conclusion more and more is that reincarnation is the re-experiencing of life in whatever format that I can't know right now, but the essential spark of life that I am will continue to experience life in one and all of its many forms. You know, and the more I dig into this, the more I realize that religion and science are not so far apart. In fact, they're not apart at all. All that is different is the way they express what it is they know. Science, incomplete in its knowledge. Religion, restricted in the way it expresses the truth that it knows, because it's using the language of human experience, which is all we know. But there is so much more, isn't there, in the universe than human experience. So life brings evolution. Life expressing and experiencing itself brings enlightenment. And I come to realize that I don't know. So much I don't know. But one day I will know. One day we all will know, because one day we will not see through a glass darkly. And can you see now how these scriptural expressions become very believable truths when we strip away the limited interpretations that we have of them? Yeah, I'm going to stop now because I'm just wandering aimlessly. Thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you guys again soon. Bye for now.